All right, welcome to technical reading through games, and we are still looking at audience and games. So if you recall, so far what we've done lots of things, all focused on determining when it comes to English, which is what that is English. And so looking at audience, it's important to know who your audience is because that's going to determine how you write and what you write. So we looked at determining the audience of your game. We've looked at several ways of doing that. We looked at determining the audience of other kinds of fiction reading that is also technical in nature, manual, that kind of thing. There is a sub-objective which I haven't really gone over directly, but I've kind of alluded to, and that sub-objective is to determine why it's important to understand who your audience is. And that's really, I think, maybe a much bigger and better question than just determining who your audience might be. So, what we're going to do today is day 2 of gameplay, looking specifically for pieces of evidence to determine your audience. But instead of just having you jump into it, I wanted to give you an example of kind of what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into world. Do that real quick. Let me switch over here, of course. And in Steam World Dig 2, we don't have anyone playing this game, so I thought it might be a good game to give you an example of. So if everyone looks back to the back of the room to Steam World Dig 2, how many of you have played this game before? Any of you? No? Alright, cool. Okay, alright. So, I'm going to get started here. I'm just going to jump in. New game. Alright, so if you've never played this game before, it does give you some indicators in terms of what it is that you can do. Alright, whoops, I just went back here. So, I guess what I want to do with this game footage, first of all, is I want to walk through, and I'm going to give you 2 examples of what it is that I'm asking you to do. So by the end of the class period today, you need to jump into Google Classroom. There's an assignment there that some of you may have started yesterday. And it asks you for 5 pieces of evidence that would game be best designed for. And you can approach it as like a demographic, you can approach it as like a Bartle player type. However you want to approach it is absolutely fine. I just want you to continue to explore this idea of game and audience. So you're going to find 5 pieces of evidence, and more importantly though, you're going to give reasons for each one of those, why each one of those points to a particular audience, all right? 2 right now, then we're going to do 2 together, and then I'm going to let you go do it on your own, right? So, if I'm heading through here, like, okay, so like one example already that I kind of see here is if I'm looking for like some enemies, like I'm looking to see like these are, whoops, these are pretty, I mean, would this be considered violent? I mean, maybe just because I'm, you know, hitting things. But there's no blood, there's no gore. So this may be one piece of evidence that might indicate that this is designed maybe for, it could be designed for new gamers. It's a pretty simple concept, right? You know, let's see, what is this? A button is dig, B button is jump. You know, up gets you into doors, and you move back and forth with the joystick. Pretty simple controls, right? There's not a lot going on there. So it could be for new gamers. So that may be one thing. Is just you know, just the game mechanics, the controls of the game is fairly simple. So that might be for you know, non-gamers and gamers alike. So if I were going to put this in Google Classroom, the evidence might be the controls, and I might say, you know, A is jump, or A is dig, B is jump, and then of course you have a joystick, which is, that's what I put for the evidence. And then the reason I'd put simple simple game controls might lend itself better to people, or you know, it could also be for gamers as well, I guess. But this particular thing might indicate more to maybe non-gamers. Now, another piece of evidence that I just had here with the enemies were fairly tame. You know, there's no real gore associated with that, and so that might be the piece of evidence is, or, excuse me, evidence. Um, the enemies would point to maybe a younger crowd or maybe somebody who doesn't like violent video games, and the reason would be there's no gore associated with attacking these kinds of characters. They're fairly non-threatening. Okay, so that'd be the reason. I want you as a class. Can you give me two more? So as I go through this here, what are two more? Just shout it out. Just yell it out. Oh, people might like area. That's a good one. Okay, so that may be that's the evidence, or that's the reason. Excuse me. To you, yes. Okay, good. So yeah, so one answer was people. So people who like to relax, and the reason. So the art style is kind of cartoonish, even the way the character was eliminated. All right. So evidence, art style is cartoonish, would point to what? Would that point to? Okay, so let's switch that around. So maybe the reason would be cartoonish, um, art style, um, would point to a younger audience, or excuse me, the evidence would be cartoonish art style. The reason to point to it maybe a younger audience. Okay, so as you think about this, you may not even want to go based on evidence first. You may even discover that like, oh, maybe I have a reason before I have evidence. So the evidence should be like gameplay, things that you notice in your game, and then the reason should be what that points to, like what kind of audience might that point to, all right? And maybe evidence and reason may not have been the best way to phrase this, but that's the point. Is the evidence should be things from your gameplay that you notice that point to a particular audience, and the reason should be why does that piece of evidence point to a particular audience, all right? So just justifying, just getting you to think through. You know, it's real easy to pick out points of evidence. It's a little more difficult to figure out what that evidence might point to. Does that make sense? All right. So what questions do you have before we just let you kind of jump in there? Yeah.
This the first 20th
No, there's a new assignment that's in there. It's actually an assignment. It should be the latest one that's in there. In Google Classroom. We'll go just a minute. Yeah. What are the questions? All right. So jump in your game. If I were you, I'd grab a laptop. They're in the back there, just so you could kind of be working as you play. So play, answer as you play, or you can watch your podmate play and then answer. It's totally up to you. All right. So jump in. Most of your games are already started up here, and we'll go from there. All right. So we're gonna go, yeah, so we'll go maybe Minecraft first, maybe, if that works. Okay. All right, so we're back with our Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild group here. Oh, excuse me, we're with Minecraft group. My bad. I'm jumping groups already on you here. We're going to Legend of Zelda next. All right, so Minecraft group. So I've asked you lots of questions about who you think the audience might be. We talked about simple art style, the fact that it's creative, those kinds of things. You know, both of you played Minecraft. I'm guessing for probably a few years. Is there anything about Minecraft that you think might surprise people?
Well, like whenever I used to play it, my dad would like look at it and he's like, "Why is it like so like the graphics so like old styled, like pixely and stuff like that?" And I just said, "That's not the point of the game. It's more like the exploring aspect and stuff like that."
Okay. Yeah, I remember playing I think the first time I played, I remember thinking to myself, like, the graphics were so simple. But I think part of the appeal, though, too, is that you can do so much with it. I mean, you can change resource packs, you can change behavior packs, you can do all that. I think because it is, a little more simple. They give you access to all of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what if the game had ultra-realistic graphics? Would that change the gameplay?
There's some like mod packs that are like really realistic, and I think it wouldn't really change the game. It's just like kind of some people like the style it is, and some people like the better graphics. Like I probably would like it if it had like better graphics.
Yeah. Now, is there like if you're going to classify like this into like a type of narrative classification, what do you think you might classify this as?
What do you mean by that?
So like, I mean, every time you play Minecraft is different, right? I mean, it's like Fortnite or like Apex Legend. Every time you play, it's going to be different, but there's still a narrative. Like there's still a story that you can tell every single time that you play, right? So if we're looking at narrative styles, it might fall into the whole idea of the Ludo narrative, where it can change every single time that you play. Now, if this were, you have Minecraft story mode, where you have like a given traditional linear narrative, does something like Minecraft story mode, does that make the game more accessible to a wider audience because it does have a more traditional narrative? Or do you think that doesn't even really play a role in the game itself?
I don't really know. The Minecraft like story mode is kind of like separate, I think, from Minecraft itself, but I watched some people play it and it seemed like it'd be pretty like fun to play it as like a side thing to play.
So, I mean, I know you can download worlds that will like, have pre-done narratives, or will, give you the opportunity to be able to like, accomplish certain tasks, or you have to complete certain quests and those kinds of things. If Minecraft itself didn't allow you the ability to be able to be creative like this, until like you had to beat, the Ender Dragon, or you had to, had some kind of linear task before you were able to get in creative. Do you think that would affect who might want to play the game?
That's like the game Forest.
Forest?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like you have to beat the game, then you get creative.
Okay, that's good. So, do you think that would be a good way to go with Minecraft? Like if they changed it so the only way you could get creative is if you actually, beat the Ender Dragon first?
Probably not.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's such a simple concept, right? Now, there are people that, I would argue, I think there are people that probably don't like it because it is too simple, right?
Yeah, probably.
So do you think like the simplicity of the graphics, the simplicity of what it is that you're able to do, do you think that makes it more accessible to a wider audience, or do you think that makes it less appealing to a wider audience?
I think it makes it more accessible to a wider audience because everyone has their like creative side when they were younger, and some people have less of it as they get older, but some people can still like maintain that creative side, and anyone can enjoy it really.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So when you're looking at Minecraft, it's easy to think of that as like, oh, well, we're just playing. But if you like, get into like, Fortnite Apex Legend, generally you don't say that you're playing, right?
Not really. You just say, I don't really like know how to say it. You just kind of play.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. But what you classify it as is very, very different than like like a Minecraft kind of thing. I mean, same thing. You're playing a game, but you just don't. That's not how people seem to view it, though, which is kind of interesting. Alright, so now we're heading over to our Zelda group here.
You didn't say no very
Alright, so, gentlemen, I kind of want to ask you what I asked the Minecraft group. So this is, this is more of a traditional narrative, although it's open world, so there's a lot of different things that you can do. So it's not necessarily completely linear, because if you wanted to, you could go to the end guy right away. Not that you'd survive, but you could if you wanted to. So, something like, now both of you play Minecraft 4, right?
Yes.
Alright, so what if Zelda had a feature like that, where you had like creative, where you could kind of create Hyrule to look and behave and act however you wanted it to?
I don't think this game really is one that could be like that, because I feel like this is strictly adventure and like just killing. I don't think there really is much of a creative aspect to it.
Alright. Now, one of the things we talked about with the Minecraft group was the idea that if Minecraft, let's say you had to beat the Ender Dragon in Minecraft before you could actually, get in creative mode, how that might change, who might be interested in the game, of course change the game itself, obviously. But what if in a game like Zelda, if you beat Calamity Ganon at the end, and then after you beat Calamity Ganon, you could go in and you could a and those kind of things completely change the whole face of Hyrule if you wanted to, and then run around and play in that world that you had just created.
I mean, it'd be cool to like slowly like rebuild the entire world, but I mean, I guess it could be done.
Does it, if you knew that that was a possibility after you beat the end guy and that was something you could do, would that take away from any of the accomplishments maybe that you had made previous to that? If you knew that at the very end that you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to in the world?
I think it'd be more of like a reward. Like, I did all this, but now it's my world.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Do you think do you think more people would be willing to try this game? I mean, knowing how big of a game it is, how long it takes to beat, do you think this game might appeal to more people if that was an option?
Uh, maybe it could, if people like really still would probably just retain the same people.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're with the HTC Vive Pod here, and they're playing a game called The Wizards, which is a more of a traditional linear style narrative, um, kind of a puzzle game, I guess you'd call it. So we've been through Minecraft group where non-traditional, you know, narrative style, very open world, very very kind of creative. Ludo narrative. So there's no, you don't have to. There's no traditional storyline there. It always changes no matter however you play it. Then we went to Zelda, where it's more of a traditional narrative, definitely more linear, although it has non-linear elements to it. And now we're to another linear game here, in terms of narrative style. And so you guys have been playing the Wizards for several days now, right?
Yeah, 4 days.
All right. So how far do you think you've gotten here in this game?
I think we're only on the 4th level.
Okay. All right.
Confusing.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, I don't really know what the symbols mean either. They don't. I don't think they told you.
Okay. All right. One of the things we talked about with this game too is the idea of accessibility. If somebody didn't necessarily have use of one or both of their hands or arms, this game is going to be pretty tough to play, right?
Yeah, because you need both your hands. Well, for most gestures, you need both your hands.
All right. Now you can be seated this whole time, so you don't. I mean, you wouldn't have to necessarily walk around because they use a teleportation system. But that's kind of another aspect of narratives that we haven't really, or of games that we haven't really looked at a whole ton, is this whole idea of accessibility. And with HTC Vive, it seems to be, I don't know, maybe exaggerated. The idea of accessibility is exaggerated only because you can see people using their, using the controllers and standing there and making these big motions and those kinds of things. Whereas, on the Xbox, we have these little controllers, and of course Xbox has the adaptive controller as well, which is kind of a neat feature. Nintendo Switch has a little controller, and our Steam Station, which we haven't gotten to yet, also has a little controller as well. But that still implies that people are able to use both of their hands and fingers as well. And so this whole idea of accessibility does have to play a part when we're looking at demographics and audience. Now, are the puzzles so hard that you don't think that everyday people could complete them?
Oh, like the gate puzzles to open the gates?
Yeah.
Probably not. I kind of just guessed until I got my way through.
All right, that's fair. Okay. Now, in this game, is everything pointed out to you, or is it a lot of like guess and check kinds of things?
Pretty much guess and check. You either that doesn't like he gives you hints, but they're really like vague hints. They don't mean like they mean a lot obviously, but they don't mean a lot to you until after you figure out and you're like, oh, that's what that meant, and then.
Now, first of all, do you play a lot of puzzle-based games?
No, not at all.
Okay. So if you're not a person who enjoys playing these puzzle-based games, are you still going to enjoy this game?
Definitely. It's not based on all puzzles, but like there's certain levels and stuff that you get to where there's puzzles to get through, such as the gates and stuff.
Okay. All right. Interesting. And the fact that this is VR does play a huge is a huge difference in comparison to the other consoles that we use here too, right? So so if you're looking at if you're gonna take this game, let's say you take this game, which is made for VR, and you drop it in, let's say like a major console like Xbox, PlayStation, something like that, how would this game transfer to one of those and not in VR?
I don't think it would work as well because it's not. It's meant for VR. They made this game with the idea of VR in mind, with it not other consoles. So I feel like VR just best fits it.
Now, it doesn't look like there's a ton of enemies, right?
Yeah, not right now. But once you hit once you walk into a certain, I guarantee you after you get past these gates or something, there's gonna be things that jump out at you, and it's just.
Okay, so if you're looking at this though, you have 6 to 8 different enemies all at one time, whereas if this were on a console, you might have 2 dozen enemies on at the same time, right? Yeah. So what's the big difference there? Between the number of enemies and what's going on. Why do you think there's such a big difference?
On a controller, you really don't have to use your fingers and move the buttons and stuff, but on this game, you have to move your whole hands around and pull out the shields at the right time as you're using your hands. There's no buttons or anything to do it.
Okay, so it's a lot more physically demanding. All right, so that does play a huge part in the audience too, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right, so we're over to our board game pod over here, and they're playing This War of Mine based off a video game. Now, these guys have played, I think, every iteration of this game possible. They've flipped the board over, played different game modes.
Except for the last day.
So the last day is the only mode you haven't played yet?
Yeah.
Are you guys trying that now?
No, this is just the advanced side of the board.
Okay, all right. Now, You guys, you were saying yesterday that you're having problems with the other side of the board. Is this scary a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, because there's a lot of things that we have to search, but we can't get through them at the moment, so.
Okay. All right, that's fair. All right. So, and I've said this, I think every single day. There's a lot of parts. There's a lot of cards. There's a lot going on here. First of all, did it take you very long to set it up?
Not really, because it tells you everywhere that it needs to go. Like under the night raids, it literally says
Okay, night raids. Yeah.
where to put them. And in the journal, it tells you how to set up the events deck and stuff like that. So.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So I'm just gonna watch and listen. All right, as you guys kind of go through this, maybe ask questions as you play. So, take it away. Oh, I'll grab that for you. All right. So we've got a journal here. We've got the book of scripts here, and we have the last day gameplay mode.
Dusk phase, and each character must drink 1 water and eat 1 food, but we don't have food or water at the moment. And because we don't have water, we have to roll the die. And then 1 to 5, you raise their hunger by 1, and 6 to 10 is raise their misery. We got, what did we get? Okay, reroll.
It's probably on the can.
We got a 2, so we raise our hunger by 1. We need a hunger 3.
Just one.
Yeah, because we have to do it for every character.
All right. Now, does this make you want to play this video game?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now we raise their misery by 1.
All right. So is this a board game you think that's made for people who like video games?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. Is this more like a D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing, maybe?
I wouldn't take it like that far, because with D&D you can pretty much make up and do whatever you want, but in this it's a little more straightforward.
Are you as invested in the characters like in this as you would be like in a video game? Like I'm trying to think of the game where you have the girl, the video game, heart-wrenching, zombie game. The Last of Us. Thank you. Yeah, Last of Us. Yeah, so I'm thinking of a game like The Last of Us, right, where you're super invested in the characters, like as far as like a video game. Are you as invested in the characters, like in this board game?
Well, in every character in the game is really well developed and has their own backstory, but as the terms of investment, I would say not really, because they tend to die off very easily.
Okay, it's more like an episode of The Walking Dead than
Yeah.
then maybe. Okay, all right, okay, yeah, I'll let you guys play. All right, looks like we came back to the Zelda group just in time.
Are you serious? Yeah.
All right, so we're at the Zelda group here. Now, what just happened?
I was fighting a big lizard, and then I died.
Okay.
You trying to tell me that lizard right there isn't big? That's a big lizard, Adam.
Not compared to other stuff you can find.
Smacking him around though, showing him who's above.
Does the size of an enemy affect approach at all?
Not at all. If I ran into Ganon, I would probably fight him right now.
Do you think it affects the way other people might play the game or not?
Some people are reasonable.
All right, fair. Is this what you like in real life too? Just walk up to the biggest guy you can and just smack him across the face.
No.
Oh, all right. Gameplay's a little different. That was a sweet move.
I tried to do that before, but Adam told me no, I can't do it again.
Do it again on that guy. What?
Is that guy sleeping?
What did you do? Shield serve?
What is that? What is a
missed.
shield surge? Yeah, I know I missed.
It's for pros. It'd be better if you
Whoa,
weren't using
what was
such a
that?
weak weapon. It's a charge attack. It's not that impressive.
Oh, I got a boomerang now.
Just a boomerang. Smack on the head.
It says Lizzle, but we all know it's Lizard.
Oh.
Oh.
He just looked at it. Use your strong weapon. What's the
No.
point of holding on to him? There's no
Oh, you just
point.
took him down. You just took him down.
See, Adam.
All right, so that's also
Because he had no health.
that's also interesting too. So when he's eliminated, he doesn't. There's no like. It's not like his guts are spilled out everywhere. It's like like feathers, right?
Correct.
Now, are there any enemies that are? I mean, that are gruesome, or are they all pretty much eliminated like that? That kind of fashion.
I mean, they're pretty ugly, but
But they're not gruesome when they're eliminated though. Right?
no.
Yeah. Which kind of fade. Yeah.
No, you don't have space to use it.
That just,
No, you can grab it again. You just have to drop something. I don't know what it was. I think melee.
Okay, so yesterday we talked to you about this whole idea of this apprenticeship when it comes to games, and the idea that when it comes, especially like these kind of like massive narrative games, it really helps to have somebody who maybe is familiar with like the lore or the series or those kinds of things. And so obviously, so I mean, between the two of you, I mean, one of you is a pretty new player when it comes to Zelda, the other one's fairly seasoned or has already beat the game.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I saw a dragon earlier.
Yeah, nice. Now, if you were playing this alone, do you think without Adam here, do you think you'd be playing it any different?
I probably wouldn't be using stronger weapons because I want to save them.
Okay.
And he yells at me a lot. And sometimes he's a bully towards me.
Hey, what?
So I would just
I
like
tell
the
you,
record
use
to
your stronger
show.
weapons, 'cause what's the point of not using your strong weapons?
Because you save them for the good stuff.
Everything's the good stuff.
No, it's. I'm not gonna waste my 14 leveled weapon on
Yeah,
a
but you kill it so
goblin.
much faster, and it makes everything so
don't
much
care.
easier.
And now all the weapons break too, right? So you have a lot less.
Which is why I don't
All
want to
except
use
the
them.
Master Sword, which you'll never get.
Oh wow.
Okay, so here's the other interesting thing too about the hearts. You know, they're cut into like looks like are they cut into like 4 pieces? The hearts?
Yeah, they
Is that
go
right?
into quarters. Sometimes it makes it hard for me to live.
Yeah. Because you only have 12 hits, right?
Well, I guess that is 3 times 4.
Yeah. I don't even teach math. Oh, that's true. An attack can do more than a quarter. You're right. Okay, so how are you determining what direction you're going next?
Just the biggest tower I can see, and then I walk towards it.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, so we're back to our HTC Vive pod here, and they just accessed a new level, which seems to be a lot different than the previous levels, which were all like castles and towers and things. Looks like more of like a forest, like a cave kind of thing here. Different enemies. What's interesting too, I think, about the HTC Vive with the VR, I guess, is that when it comes to building a narrative, building a story, you know, the plot itself, I don't want to say it takes a back seat to the graphics, but it kind of does, in that the more immersive you can make the environment, the more believable the story becomes. So let me ask you, so you're playing this, do you think if the graphics weren't as good as they are, do you think the game would be as fun as it is?
Probably not.
Can you still have simple... Whoa. That's interesting. All right, so based on this new discovery, on this new level, how are you feeling about this game now?
It was. I really liked it to begin with, but now the new level is like I changed, so it's like different, and it keeps me entertained. Like it's different.
Okay, so it keeps it keeps you engaged. All right, it's important when knowing your audience. All right, so to conclude today, I know a lot of you are finishing up your games. It's absolutely fine. Just remember, we only have a few minutes left of class, about 5 minutes. If you have not already completed your questions in Google Classroom, make sure you do that. All right, remember 5 pieces of evidence that indicate who your game is designed for, as well as 1 reason for each piece of evidence. And that's really the important part, is explaining why you think that evidence points to a particular audience. All right, we're going to use this for our class discussion tomorrow. As we talk about games and audience, we're almost done with this unit. And then tomorrow we're also going to talk about in games and how that affects the audience as well. All right, so what questions do you have here? No questions. All right, well, go ahead and jump into Google Classroom. Get your pieces of evidence typed up, and we'll see you tomorrow.